I'm impressed by this applause. Let's give as good a round of applause to another team coming all the way from the Plateau de Saclay, ENSAE. Teams taking on the difficult charge of emotion. Of course, they're biased, so they will not decide the outcome of this debate. 1/3 team, let's just call it this way, will do so, the jury. Let's welcome our wonderful jury for this evening. Please give them a wonderful round of applause. We're missing a chairperson, of course, and our bell people. For this evening, bell persons, let's give a wonderful round of applause to the president of the French Debating Association chairing this evening, Declan McCavana. For our co-secretaries general, Pipaud. Without further ado, pass the floor to our dear chairman for this evening, Declan.
Well, there's one man we haven't introduced, and that is the man who did such wonderful introductions. Our co-vice president, Mr. Peter Barrett. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those big ones. The grandiose ones. The great ones. The ones you'll never ever forget. The ones you can say to your kids, hey guys, I was there when France won the World Cup in 1998. When Ireland won the Grand Slam in 2018. When SUPAERO or ENSAE won the FDA final in 2022. Indeed, this evening, the French Debating Association is celebrating its 29th annual debating tournament. Its 28th year running at the French National Assembly. And once again, we're doing it in style. But this year, we're back to our old hunting ground, where we started off so tenderly all those years ago. Victor Hugo and his Salaün. Welcome us back after 12 years' absence. Victor himself has had a facelift. And some of us who were present back then might need one too. I include myself. Our presence here is due to the... Thank you, Madam Secretary. That wasn't absolutely necessary, but nonetheless. Our presence here is due to the current incumbent of the presidency of the French National Assembly, to the man who responded positively to our request for a venue for our final this evening. A man who is representative of the openness, the transparency of this forum for all citizens. And this clearly is a moment in time, a moment in French history where that is particularly true. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the French Debating Association and all of us here present this evening, I would like to thank in the warmest of fashions the President of the National Assembly, Mr. Richard Ferrand. I would also like to thank the Premier Questeur, Mr. Florian Bachelier, who granted us the opportunity to avail of this magnificent arena for our feast of rhetoric this evening. Mr. Florian. The great Samuel Beckett, a Franco-Irishman, if ever there was one, whom we celebrated with emotion for our final, back in the heady days of 2016, once said that, and I quote, "Every word is like an unnecessary stain on silence and nothingness." But were he alive today, he probably simply would have said, "Turn your mobile phones off." So we're 29 years old in the FDA, but by the time you're 29 years of age, you've probably done a number of crazy things. You might regret some of them, and you might remember some of them with joy, with envy, with pleasure, with enthusiasm, with desire, with ecstasy. But I mean, life doesn't end at 29. There's much more to come. Youth leads to experience. Experience leads to understanding. Understanding leads to knowledge. And knowledge leads to the ultimate. Well, you know what? In my humble opinion, that's all a load of rubbish. The only thing that really counts is not experience, nor understanding, nor knowledge, but of course, exchange, interaction, discussion, in short, debate. That is what the FDA has been about for 29 years. Exchange, interaction, discussion, combat and jousting, attacking, defending, elbowing, shouldering, and sometimes kneeing, and using any other part of the body that can become a verb in English. Use your imagination. But always, always, always in a spirit of good humor, respect, and friendly rivalry. But most of all, the FDA, over our 29 years of existence, has been about providing a forum, an arena, a coliseum for those who leave their real weapons outside. In past times, their swords, and who linguistically and mentally decide to drop the first S of swords and adopt, therefore, its democratic equivalent. Think about it. I should also add the FDA is not just about verbal jousting, but is also a place for exchange over, as we say beautifully in French, le verre de l'amitié. And thus, I warn you in advance that for anyone who so wishes, at the outcome of this debate, we welcome you to join us at Le Transit, le Café de la Gare des Invalides, barely 3 minutes from here, to relive the debate and argue about the decision of the jury. Over a glass of two, and I add, on the account of the French Debating Association. Well, at least for the first two classes. After that, it's all. All right. Enough of this tomfoolery. Let's now move to the business at hand, the real business at hand. This evening's rhetorical combat. The two teams present this evening have won through 4 qualifying rounds to get to this final. And so the winner will truly be the FDA champion of 2022 and our 29th anniversary winner. Both these teams are former winners of our trophy. And thus the atmosphere promises to be tense, heated, and even tropical. On the proposition side, please welcome fresh from their from their semi-final victory over Assas at the Centre Culture Irlandais, barely 10 days ago, the team from SUPAERO. Prime Minister, Mr. Conall De Paor. Second Speaker, Mr. Doppia. Third Speaker, Mr. Joao Leitao. Fourth Speaker, Ms. Pratishtha Tiwari. I practiced that one all of last night. And their whip will be Deeksha Kota. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Centre Culturel Irlandais, and in particular its director, Nora Hickey, who is on our jury this evening, and all of its staff for having allowed us the use of their wonderful space in the Quartier Latin for that semi-final. Thank you. In our other amazing semi-final, ENSAE met with Centrale Supélec, who were valiantly competing in their first ever semi-final. But ultimately, ENSAE prevailed. And they are tonight's opposition. The leader of the opposition, Mr. Benjamin Pipaud. Second speaker, Ms. Maria Alexa. Salaün. Fourth speaker, Mr. Clemente. And the final speaker of this evening's debate and whip for the opposition will be Mr. Alexandre Quéant. That semi-final took place at the Irish Embassy here in Paris, and we would like to thank Ambassador Burgess, who unfortunately cannot be with us this evening, and all the staff of the Irish Embassy who allowed us to make it a truly memorable occasion. But now, ladies and gentlemen, spare a thought for the people who have the particularly difficult decision of choosing winning team and best speaker this evening. The very distinguished members of the jury. We've had impressive juries in the past, 29 years. But this group of talented individuals is the most impressive ever to grace an FDA file. Each of them comes from a different field of competence, be it the domain of politics, diplomacy, administration, the arts, the media, or indeed academia. But each is distinguished by his or her excellence in that field. First of all, the president of the jury. We have had North American ambassadors on our final juries. We have had ambassadors from Australasia. We have had ambassadors from Asia. We have had ambassadors from Europe. But this year's president is our first African ambassador. I first met her at a reception at the Irish Embassy last year and boldly asked her if she was interested in debating. She equally boldly, as a diplomat, answered yes. I wasn't sure if she was quoting James Joyce's famous Molly Bloom, but it is an absolute delight to welcome her this evening, the Ambassador of Ghana to France, to Portugal, UNESCO, the OEF, and the OECD. Her Excellency Anna Bosman. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a real honor and a true pleasure to introduce our next jury member. A man who has had a truly amazing career and who is an authentic friend of the English language and of the French Debating Association. He rose through the ranks of the administration of the French National Assembly and became Secretary General of the Questure of this institution. That seemed like the pinnacle of a glorious career. But then, in 2021, he was elected to the position of Commissioner for Ethics here at the National Assembly, Mr. Christophe Barrett. Now, you may have noticed a slight Irish feel to this evening's proceedings, and I'd like to welcome the first member of the Celtic Connection here this evening. I mentioned that our first semi-final took place at the Irish Embassy, and that evening I had the pleasure of meeting the head of consular affairs, excuse me. This evening he represents Ambassador Burgess, and he is here as the representative of the Irish Embassy, Mr. Maurice Cutter. Staying on the Irish theme, let's now move to an old friend of the FDA and a very close personal friend of mine. Senior Communications Advisor at the OECD with 24 years at the OECD and 32 years since he started his career at The Economist, where he was West Europe editor at the Economist Intelligence Unit. Also a leading member of the Paris Bloomsday Group, who will be performing at the Centre Culturel Irlandais on June the 16th. This year, to mark the centenary of the publication of James Joyce's Ulysses, he was educated at Trinity College, where he was once voted one of the 2 most stylish students of the university. Guess who the other one was? Mr. Rory Clark. Our Irish connection continues with our next jury member. She is certainly the linchpin of Irish cultural activity in Paris, and has over the years since her appointment in 2013 proved her verve, creativity and imagination in the promotion of Irish culture in Paris. Given our Joycean theme this evening, her presence with us is all the more fitting and poignant. The directrice of the Centre Culturel Irlandais here in Paris, Ms. Nora Higgins. Our next jury member has always, well, he's had an amazing and tremendous career. A native Belgian, he has also been inspired to encourage Franco-British relations. He is a convinced European and has been actively involved in various British community organizations in France over the last few decades. Today, well, he was the founder and chair of an association named Franco-British Connections, which fosters links between the United Kingdom and France. No easy task in recent times. He is an MBE, member of the British Empire, bestowed on him for his work in this field, and is the perfect symbol of all that links the United Kingdom and the French Republic, and dare I say it, the European Union. Mr. Jean-Pascal Sivier. Well, we go back to Ireland, obviously, and yet we remain in France. The next member of the jury is a very, very special person and a very, very special friend. She has already graced our final jury on 2 occasions. 3. And 3, she tells me, right? Right. Stand corrected. and she gives our jury another insight into what makes a great debating team and great winners. She represented Ireland in the Eurovision Song Contest in 1985, and then after moving to France and taking a break to have 7 children, she returned to singing in the Irish version of The Voice in 2016, and then the French version of The Voice. That's what it's called, isn't it? In 2020. Her life story is a fairy tale of fortitude and combat. And in 2018, she told that story in her autobiography, On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. She has just recorded a song with French artist André Manoukian, and is taking some time out of her extremely busy schedule to be with us here this evening. Ms. Maria Daw. Now, Ireland remains high on our agenda amongst our jury members. I'm sorry, it's a special year. The next member also studied at Trinity College, where her creative talents were first discovered when she played the maid in La Conterie Chauffe by Eugène Ionesco. Since then, she herself has established herself as a leading playwright, novelist, and short story writer. So much so that she was offered a position as writer in residence at the Centre Culturel Irlandais here in Paris. She has already had a very distinguished career, but I feel sure that the best is yet to come. My old friend, Miss Sylvia Conall. And now to our final jury member. It is traditional for our French Debating Association final jury to contain an experienced FDA debater. This year that was a hard task because many of our former SecGens are either former students of one of the finalists of the two teams or have already judged one of the two teams. However, our next jury member answers all the criteria to fulfill that role. And even more, as she is our social media officer. And therefore, the person you have to thank for all of those beautiful Facebook images that invited you to be here this evening, Miss Louise Salaün. Alright, I'm trying to speed up. Okay, I'm sorry. There really isn't much I can say about the next two people because, I mean, I wrote about 3 pages about them, but I basically said it all before. But let me be as precise as I possibly can, and those of you who know me know that that's very difficult.
Here, here.
But basically, without them, you wouldn't be here tonight. They are our co-SecGens, our backbone, our lifeblood, our raison d'être. That's English, huh? Our cement. And it is. And it is with great pleasure that I'd like to show them a small token of the FDA's appreciation for their immeasurable importance, their unfathomable labour, and, to put it bluntly, their sheer brilliance. Ms. Shanika de Silva and Mr. Barrett. see, silence can be pretty cool as well. It's also indeed fitting that this feast of eloquence should take place in France's cradle of oratory, the Assemblée Nationale, but it's even more the case given that the spectacle of rhetoric you were about to witness is based on the rules and procedures of the Assemblée's sister house in the United Kingdom, the House of Commons. So for those of you unfamiliar with the format, I'll just very briefly run through it. 5 speakers from each side can be interrupted by points of information. I think most of you know how it works, and you get the point. There can be points of order. They're made to the chairman, that is to say me, who must accept. They are not included in the timing. If any speaker insults my wife, I will immediately slap him in the face. She's just gone bright red, by the way. Coming back to the timekeepers, that was a bet, by the way, that I had to make that reference. But anyway, and now I've won, so I won't mention the person's name. People who keep me right, timing is 1 minute, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Okay, we'll go through it quickly, yeah. We'll go through it quickly. 1, 5, 6. And there we go, yeah. Sounds like Christmas, doesn't it? All right. The jury will then retire. Jury are looking, and the jury have received the criteria. The jury are looking for 5 criteria: the content, the presentation, the teamwork, the engagement, and the overall impression, or as we call it, the je ne sais quoi. But I insist, to the members of the jury and to all of us here present, this is not a question of the level of English. Now, the level of English you are going to hear this evening is absolutely extraordinary. That's not why that's not one of our criteria, but it should not be taken into account. After the jury retires, the motion will be thrown open to you, the members of the House, and you will have the opportunity to take the floor and make a speech for, against, or ask questions to either of the 2 teams. Right. All of this talk is very well. Enough blah blah blah. As the great South African philosopher Dennis Herson once said, yes. Which is roughly translated by Aristotle as, words are also actions, and actions are a kind of words. You have come for action, ladies and gentlemen, and we will open the arena to our oratorical gladiators this evening. 2022 is the centenary of the publication here in Paris of possibly the 20th century's greatest novel, Ulysses, by Irish writer James Joyce. We wish to pay homage to him this evening by using one of his most famous quotes as our motion. This House believes that absence is the highest form of presence. So let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the Prime Minister, first speaker for the motion, Conall De Paor.
Greetings, Your Excellency, Ambassador Bosman, dear Commissioner Christophe Barrett. Thank you to the President of the Assemblée Nationale, Richard Ferrand, for hosting us this evening. Dear members of the jury, welcome. I'm sure that you will enjoy this debate. And to those of you from Ireland, céad míle fáilte romh. Agus fáin cinse go mbeadh sé tanbhas an díospóra seo. Leopold Bloom did enjoy his Gorgonzola. And Honourable Chairman, I know that you will enjoy tonight's feast of rhetoric, as you put it.
Hear, hear.
Accurately metered by our delightful timekeepers.
Yeah.
Dear opposition, I hope your arguments will not take us as high as Icarus flew. Dear learned friends on the government, I am honoured to be absent from class today with you. Monsieur Olivier Lebre, Directeur Général de l'ENSAE SUPAERO, présent. Monsieur le Directeur de l'ENSAE, absent. Mais présent dans nos cœurs. A warm, a yad, aunt and uncle, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, friends watching in Amphi 1 and everywhere else, welcome to the Juicy Joyce Book Club. Let's take it to another level. I am the host of this week's gathering in my study. I hope you're all cozy and content with our crackling open fire over here and tea and biscuits on the table in the back, and these horizontal lines on the wall, those are our books, ladies and gentlemen. All the way to the ceiling. We all read a book, right, this week, so that we could discuss our motion. The origin of this motion, it's unusual. It's a quote from Joyce indeed, but you won't find it in Ulysses, nor Dubliners, nor a portrait of the artist as a young man. You'll find it in a letter. A letter which Joyce wrote in Italian to his daughter Lucia on May the 24th, 1935. He wrote, "L'assenza è la forma più alta di presenza." Absence is the highest form of presence. How aptly put, everybody. How enigmatically put. And we, on this side of the book club, have taken it to heart. From reading the rest of his letter and the dictionary, we can see what Joyce really meant when he said this. When he wrote absence, he meant the fact of not being where you're usually expected or hoped to be. Now, absence is about more than just not being there. Your presence must be expected for you to be absent. After all, it would be quite odd to say that the Queen of England is absent from tonight's debate. Presence, according to Joyce, is the fact that something or something is in a place in your head, in space, in your heart, or in your face. Presence is also a feeling that someone or something is in a place although they're not physically there. From these definitions, we see that presence can be physical in its most basic form, or it can be on another level, emotional, spiritual and cultural presence. This is the level that the government will be focusing on here today. We are not talking about physical presence because it's not what Joyce was talking about when he writes that absence is the highest form of presence. The highest form of presence, ladies and gentlemen, is presence on another level. It is presence which transcends our physical and temporal limitations. Now that is not to say, ladies and gentlemen, that the highest form of presence is always practically useful, or the most desirable. We're not saying that we'd rather be absent than present all the time. Not at all. We're delighted to be here with you, ladies and gentlemen.
So every time you think of something, it's present?
Yes. We are delighted to be here to talk about love. When we love someone, or some place, we take on a piece of them in our hearts. And when we leave them, we feel something, don't we? Something pushing and pulling at us, making us think of being with that person or going swimming on that beach. In our souls, these things have another kind of presence. A presence independent of distance and time. A presence in its highest form, ladies and gentlemen. But not every story has a happy ending. The legacy of bad things can persist too. Yes, ma'am.
What if you don't feel love? What if you don't feel love?
What if you don't feel love? But not every story has a happy ending. The legacy of bad things persists too. The pain of a traumatic event can be felt long after it has passed. Toxic ideas last long after their authors have died. Addiction can dog you even years after years of sobriety. And this book club recognizes that evil things can also transcend their physical limitations. So this motion is big. And this week's book was big. And in the absence of one true meaning of the book, the Juicy Joyce Book Club plans to show it from all angles. First, Thomas, our actor friend, when he finishes his tea, he will show that when things are physically present, we take them for granted. And when they're gone, we feel their presence on the highest level. And when we know the power that absence can have over us, our bookworm activist Joao will share his interpretation and show how absence can be used today in our culture and in our politics to amplify our messages. The book will then be passed to our yoga instructor, Pratishtha, who will show us that in the absence of chaos, our minds can wander yonder for new things to ponder. At the end of our meeting, Deeksha, our literary critic, by highlighting the inconsistencies in the opposition's book report, will give us an ending to remember. Absence, ladies and gentlemen, is the highest form of presence. Because presence in absence transcends our physical limitations. Read between the lines, absence is the sign. Jury, please vote for this loftiest of motions.
Thank you very much to our Prime Minister. Excellent opening to this evening's debate. No doubt, equally excellent will be the reply from the leader of the opposition, Mr. Benjamin Pipaud.
Your Excellency, dear Commissioner, honorable members of the jury, we are thankful for your presence, which will inspire us to bring debating to its highest form. Hopefully. On behalf of my entire team and our guests, I would like to thank the President of the Assemblée Nationale, Richard Ferrand, for welcoming us here tonight. It is with great honor that we will be debating in this place of utmost democratic importance. Dear Chairman, lovely bell girl, lovely bell boy, your dedicated presence is what makes this final and all the debates that came before possible. So on behalf of all the debaters here, I say thank you. Friends from the government, I'm quite amused to see that you guys decided to show up to defend absence. I mean, did you not want to honor us with what you think is the highest form of presence? It's quicker. But anyways, I hope you will enjoy this evening as much as we will. Thank you for being here. Now, dearest opposition, dearest coach, thanks to you, this competition was unforgettable. To me, it was the best of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of hard work. It was the season of light. It was spring of hope. It was the summer of friendship. I will not forget it. Thank you so much. Now, dear audience, friends and family from ENSAE, in person or online, Mom, Dad, my sister, my brother watching this on Facebook, thank you all for coming. I hope this moment will be worthy of your presence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Sophie, and I know about absence as I have never met my father. He's always been absent from my life. But you may already know this. Have you seen the movie Mamma Mia? Well, if you haven't, don't worry. Hollywood stole it from me and turned it into a movie. But Mamma Mia really is my story. Before I tell it though, we've been cheated by you, government, and I think you know when. So let me debunk you once again. Damn, I think reading Ulysses is as long as your introduction. Both times I didn't bother, to be honest. And besides, you were wrong. We agree with your definition. Presence is not just physical. But what you fail to mention is what is the other level presence can bring you to. What is the highest form? But don't worry, I'll come back to you on that. Besides, everything you think about something is presence, you said. Well, there are 7 billion people on Earth. I'm telling you, they won't fit in this room, nor in my head. No, thank you. Coming back to me, I recently turned 20 and I thought, where has my dad been all my life? Well, so I read my mother's diary from 20 years ago, but here the plot thickens during this... Yes, go ahead.
How is it not the highest form of your father's presence if your mind is so occupied with his thoughts all the time?
My dad being here is the highest form of presence. I don't understand your question, but... I read my mother's diary from 20 years ago, but here the plot thickens. During the summer I was conceived, she had not 1, not 2, but 3 affairs. So at first I was wondering, is there a father out there? But now, there are 3. So I invited them to figure out who my father is. And talking about their absence. Is absence the highest form of presence? We, the opposition, disagree. Let me walk you through our definitions. So first, as the government said, we cannot understand this notion literally. Otherwise, absence is obviously opposed to presence, and that's it, we won. So let's think deeper. 1. Being present is existing, being here, being acknowledged, being noticed, being felt by others, according to us. And that is why we don't think absence simply is not being here. Once again, not sticking to physical definitions, as you said. In order for absence to be felt, presence needs to be expected, wanted, or wished for. Absence is then when someone or something seems away, physically or mentally, even though you did not expect them to. For instance, my dad, or my real dad, yeah, he, or they, well, anyway, I felt his absence because I expected him to be here, but he's not. So finally, what do we mean by... Yes, go ahead.
Wasn't the absence of your father the highest presence of the search for your father?
You know, I have a mother, so that's okay, thanks. So, as I was saying, what do we mean by the highest form of? What you failed to define properly. The motion first implies that absence is a form of presence, and indeed, according to our definition, when someone whom you expected to be here fails to be, you can feel their absence. And they are thus, in a way, present as they exist in your mind. On this we agree. Highest form can imply of greatest impact. But also, think about these popular sayings. Literature is the highest form of writing. FDA debating is the highest form of rhetoric. Yeah. Highest form is also about dignified and respected forms. You did not mention that. To us, this motion implies that absence takes presence to an extreme level of impact and elevation. And we disagree. Now, to show you why to this motion we can't comply. They came by because I was looking for a dad, and anybody could be that guy. I hereby introduce the opposition. You will first hear from candidate number 1 to my paternity, Harry the banker. The idea that the scale of society, an engaged presence is a higher form of presence than absence, as 1. An engaged presence is more effective than a willing absence, And 2, an engaged presence is the only way to break free from a forced absence. No thank you. Then candidate number 2, Bill, the adventurer. He will also say, bravely assert that the scale of relationships, a steady presence surpassing absence as 1. When you meet someone, you actually desire their presence. And 2, when you don't meet someone, you just substitute them. Next, candidate number 3, Sam the architect. He will deny the idea that at a personal scale, a courageous presence outweighs absence as 1. With others, absence is unfulfilling. And 2, with yourself, being absent leads to you forgetting yourself. Finally, our whip, my mother, Donna. Presence made me we reject this motion, and government will not going to take attendance, but please listen. As Harry, Bill, and Salaün showed you, at every scale, in society, relationships, and yourself, there is a way to be present, engaged, steady, or courageous in a more elevated and impactful way than absence can offer. In essence, presence fulfills, whereas absence distills. Honorable members of the jury, please reject this motion.
Thank you very much to the leader of the opposition. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the debate is on its way. So, it is now with great pleasure that I would like to call upon the second speaker from the government side, Mr. Doppia.
Being surrounded by such illustrious figures, my friends, feeling the presence of the architect of all this just next to me, fills me with euphoria. But time is our most valuable resource, and therefore are the timekeepers our most treasured guides. Your Excellency, Ambassador Anna Bosman, dear Commissioner Christophe Palais, Madame Maria Doyle, and Madame Nora Hickey. You are living proof that art is the highest form of hope. Thank you for your presence. Dear jury, without you my speech would be a mere soliloquy, and so thank you again for being here tonight. But cowards die many times before their death, my friends of the government, and so let us be brave. But alas, the course of debating never did run smooth. And so, a fierce opposition stands before us. But dear audience, to be present, or not to be present, is not a question anyone would ask when it comes to being present with you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take it to another level. I, the Shakespearean actor, I'm here to spell out why absence is the highest form of presence. Before I do so, however, I have to tear the paper-thin definitions of the leader of the opposition. First of all, for someone who talks about the absence of his father, I found the term "my father" quite present in your speech. Then you also said that the Prime Minister Conall, host of tonight's meeting, did not define properly highest form. Well, I disagree. He did say that the highest form is the one that transcends the physical. My friends, the leader of the opposition seems to imply that because presence is at the root of everything in our society, physical presence, it is the highest form. But think of this, the root is at the bottom. Turning the page, ladies and gentlemen, the host of tonight's Juicy Joy's Book Club meeting, Conall, has already explained that tonight we are here to talk about the book. This book spoke to me on a very personal level.
What information?
In a moment, please. He told me that absence lets us feel the presence of what we are now missing. Yes, please.
What does transcending the physical word mean?
It means that things, presence, is no longer bound by the time and the space. You can keep on being present through the memories of others. It now falls upon me to transcribe this message into acts. When things are always accessible, we take them for granted. But when they are taken away, that's when you feel their presence. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was reading this week's assignment, I had an epiphany. We all take so many things for granted, don't we? Some debaters even take having sensical definitions for granted. But also, drinking water. 1/4 of the Earth's population does not have access to water they can drink, and yet we bathe in it. Nature, even, no thank you. 35,000 species are currently threatened with extinction, and yet we keep on burning oil. All those things are so deeply ingrained in our lives that we stop paying attention to them. Yes, please.
When someone is reported missing, is he at the highest form of his presence?
The person is not, but the feelings for this person, the memory of this person is here. My friends, when you take something for granted, it gathers dust on the shelves of our minds while we live on. Dear audience, by show of hands, how many of you voted on Sunday? Yes, 27% of you did not vote. National average. Of course, some of us choose not to vote as a political statement. Our activist Joao will demonstrate the power of such non-action. But the rest of us simply do not care enough to vote. Dear jury, what is always there with us tends to lose its value and fall into oblivion. Wait, what are my glasses? No. How can this possibly be the highest form of presence, dear jury? Absence is the highest form of presence because without absence we take things for granted. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when what you expect to be there is taken away. Sorry. Oh, thank you. This is when your feelings for it are most present. And this is how the second act.
On that point?
Yes, please.
So do you take her excellence is presence for granted?
No, of course not. I am merely saying that we all take things for granted. You can choose to enjoy and appreciate things in your life as you should. But there is always something you do not think of. And something you take for granted. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry once wrote, it is only with the heart that one can see brightly. The essential is invisible for the eyes. Absence forces us to focus on our hearts, our feelings, rather than on our senses. When we have to immigrate from Spain or India, many things we expect to have around us disappear. Somehow, absence from home makes our home feel all the more close to us. Even beyond places and people, ladies and gentlemen. When we wake up tomorrow, with tonight's chapter closed, we will all be hit by the glory of this moment and hope to revel in it more. Right now, all of us in the Assemblée Nationale, opposition, government, jury, audience, we are all so caught up in the moment that we forget to take in how breathtaking this all is. This instant will turn into a memory, and that memory will live on. It gets coated with powerful feelings, growing stronger with time and transcending the physical. This is how our yoga instructor, Pratishtha, will harness creativity, mindfulness, and imagination. Absence lets us feel on a higher level. Dear audience, I have enacted how we tend to take everything and everyone around us for granted, which cannot be the highest form of presence. In contrast, absence makes it possible for our feelings to come on stage on another level. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, this house believes that absence is the highest form of presence. Read between the lines, absence is a sign. Please vote for the motion and sing.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May I now call upon the second speaker from the opposition side, and that is Ms. Maria Alexa.
Your Excellency, dear Commissioner, it is a great honor to debate in your presence. Dear Chairperson, dear timekeepers, your dedicated involvement throughout this competition is the highest form of presence anyone could ask for. Dear members of the jury, you are almost as many of us debaters tonight. It is a bit intimidating, but we thank you for the time you have given us and for your presence. So thank you. Dear government, you all look very dashing and present. It's a pleasure to debate with you tonight. Dearest opposition, dearest coach, let's continue to shine, shall we? Dear audience, dear family and friends, thank you for being here, and don't forget to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Now greetings, I am Harry Potter. Okay, just kidding, I'm Harry the banker, and it's my turn to speak, but first let me critique the government's cheek. Now, you're saying that presence can be felt in time and space. Oh, how cute! So you never feel absence. Absence does not exist in your definition? Interesting. And frankly, I do not take anything for granted. My family being here, I do not take it for granted. Sophie, my lovely, possibly daughter, being here, I do not take it for granted. And finally, wouldn't you rather have that person you're missing, their presence, than their absence? Their presence is their higher form. You want to see them. Now, darling Sophie, you did a marvelous job of explaining the motion. Bravo, no thank you. I'm here tonight to apply for the job of the father. And I read in the job description that it's better to be an engaged one, you know? And I believe that my qualification and expertise make me the perfect candidate for the job. You see, I could provide financial engagements because I have that thing called, oh yeah, money. I'd rather be, yes? Okay. I'd rather be an engaged presence than an absent one. Yes, go ahead.
Is the requirement of being a good father not loving your daughter when you are not physically with them?
Well, sure, I can love her when I'm not with her. What does that have to do with anything? I'm not saying I'm in love with someone that's out of space. She's here, I'll be present. Okay? Now, when it comes to absence, there's willing absence and there's forced absence. And I will show that in both cases, an engaged presence results to concrete results at the scale of society. No thank you. And because firstly, an engaged presence brings out more results than a willing absence. And secondly, the only way to break away from a forced absence is through an engaged presence. Now, let's make one thing crystal clear. Those of you who are absent are in the wrong. Because, yes?
If an engaged presence is what society rests on, is an engaged presence not at the bottom?
Certainly not, because an engaged presence is what we need and we will continue to need from now on, always. So you see, when they're not here, they don't get to decide or to stand up for themselves when they disappear. They're not here to scream and shout and let it all out, so they're simply cut out. No, thank you. You see, Woody Allen explained it perfectly. 80% of life is simply showing up. Our own justice system is based on engaged presence. You see, in trial, if the plaintiff does not show, no thank you, but the defendant does, then the court may simply dismiss the case as they please. And furthermore, you talked about voting. Well, no thank you. In democracy, if you choose to be absent from voting, like you said, 27% of French people do, to show you're unhappy with the current system, well, you're simply associated with people who did not care enough to show, and your inaction has no effect whatsoever on the results. So you need to have an engaged presence. No, thank you. Now, Sam will explain to you that it is not the easiest choice, but it is the choice that we need at the scale of society. Alas, sometimes your absence may be forced upon you like it was on me. And this leads me to my second argument. Let's suppose, no thank you, let's suppose you are forced to be absent. What does that mean? It means you did not get an invite. You're not included. Think of oppressed groups. If you're looking for effective results, then you need to switch, no thank you, from that forced absence to an engaged presence, and that is what Pierre Bergogneau, who worked with Roland Barthes, believes. Yes, Sophie, I am quite knowledgeable. When you're forced to be absent, you lose your representation and therefore your presence altogether. Minorities, such as black people, disabled people, women in engineering schools are not represented in the art, in the literature, in the media. And representation, they need to switch it up. And that is exactly what Judge Jackson did when she got nominated to the Supreme Court as the first black woman ever. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have shown you that in order to shape our society, an engaged presence is what we need. And furthermore, Bill, the next candidate, will zoom in and show you how at the scale of relationships, a steady presence is a higher form of presence than absence. Now, in essence, presence fulfills, whereas absence distills. Members of the jury, I implore you to reject this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. May I now call upon the next speaker from the government side, Mr. Joao Leitao.
Absent. The missing page.
You see the absence. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome. In the very high spirit of this motion, absence is the highest form of presence. I too am performing the highest form of greetings. Your Excellency, Ambassador Anna Bosman, dear Commissioner Christophe Halle, Mr. Rory Clark, and Mr. Maurice Cota. Chairman, Mr. and Mrs. Barrett, dear members of the jury, of course, members of the opposition, members members of the government. And of course, star audience, let's go! Let's take it to another level. My turn has come to present my understanding of the book. But before, as an activist, I must protest against the arguments of the opposition. First of all, quick things. Answering the POI, highest form of presence of anything is needing. No, you need food, you need basic physical things. The highest form of thing is receiving love. It's so much more than what you just said. Second, you say that presence is always the best thing all around. But no, I would rather be absent from some statistics class than to be present there. Presence can be very tiresome, very boring, I must say. And the most important thing is that when you talk about absence and people not being invited to parties, they are therefore not expected to attend. So absence is something that is not present and is expected. So you should attend more about the motion that your leader of the opposition reformulated. Lastly, actions require presence. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think that the legacy of James Joyce bring this all together, even though he's not here, he's not present, but we make all of this action in the absence of the author of this motion? I've been coming to the Juicy Joyce book club for a long time, and I've learned that absence is the highest form of presence because your message is most present when conveyed with absence. No thank you. On my agenda I have 3 points. Silence, absence of words, strengthens our message. 2. Inactions, here we go, listen. Inactions elevate our stances. And 3. Legacies are our messages once we are gone. And that's why absence is a highest form of presence. Yes?
You said you're an activist. What would me boycotting Google, thus being absent, would change?
Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that boycotting can be and is primarily a form of absence when you reject what they are imposing on us? That's the highest form of your message. Now, first point, our Shakespearean actor Thomas, no thank you, helped us understand the importance and meaning of absence. So let's use it. For example, in a debate, you all expect for the speaker to talk a lot of words and sounds, but no one expects silence. If we arrive home and our partner gives us the silent treatment, oh boy, we almost beg them to talk to us because we know, ladies and gentlemen, that their silence is the highest form of their discontent towards us. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2016, 4 days after the terrorist attack in Nice, at midday, all across France, at the bars, at the cafes, at the restaurants, at the offices, the whole country fell silent. And then, that silence inspired the resilience and the solidarity for all of French people. There's nothing higher than that. Yes.
Yeah. Do you think absence is the highest form of presence works for women in politics?
Why are you ignoring the fact that we should strive for the more presence in women in politics because we feel the absence of them right now? Silence strengthens the message, and that's why silence is the highest form of presence. But silence is not the only form of absence, of course. Inaction, no thank you, elevates our stances, which is my second point. During my experience, no thank you, as an activist, I learned about the effect of boycotting. Situations where not showing up speak louder than showing up. Last week I had a date with a girl on Tinder, but plot twist, she didn't show up. And believe me, dear jury, no message has ever been clearer. And talking about people not sitting at the table, abstentionism is a universal way of presenting demands. Just consider the UN, when 80%, no thank you, when 80% of the representatives left the room the moment Russia
was going to speak. Their absence reinforced the impenetrable stance in a way that no words or motions or actions could do. On that point, no, thank you. Their absence reinforced their absence is not only convoluted in actions, but can also lead to limitless creativity, which is exactly our yoga instructor's point. Ladies and gentlemen, just bringing back a little. In 1918, Ireland, Sinn Féin won 73 out of 105 seats in the British Parliament, and they did not show up. A stance of resistance, of course. And because of that, and today, we are a free and independent Republic of Ireland because abstention elevated the cause of independence. You see? And that's how legacies are born, ladies and gentlemen. That's my third point. Do you think the ideals of civil rights movement died the moment Martin Luther King was assassinated? Of course not. We're living them. Our legacy lives on in the minds and hearts of others, even when we are gone. Even when we don't have our physical presence. That's how our highest form. So ladies and gentlemen, read between the lines. Absence is the sign. Please vote for the abortion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May I now call upon the third speaker from the opposition side, Ms. Rose Salaün.
Your Excellency, dear Commissioner, fair jury, thank you for your presence here tonight. Members of the FDA, thank you for organizing this tournament and providing us with this motion. Wonderful Chairman, could I borrow one of your ties? You made me feel so underdressed. Timely bell, I won't mind if you're absent when I hit the 6-minute mark. Dear government, at least your arguments are here. We hope you're having as much fun as we are. Family from the opposition, Mrs. Woods, oh, the fun we've had and the classes we've been absent to. Oh, I forgot the administration from our school was here. Thanks for coming. We didn't. Cheerful audience, mom, dad, grandma, thank you for showing up, for being here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Bill, and I'm an adventurer. I've traveled the world and I've seen it all, but I have a confession to make. I just found out I may be her dad? Oh my, all the things I've missed. But one thing I sure haven't missed is the opposition's lies. The government's lies. So, activist Joao, what has your activism changed? I'm sorry. I'm not the power of not voting, but as Maria explained, you're just gonna be confused with people who are kind of just lazy. And it's exactly the same for boycotting. Your absence is gonna be erased by everyone else's presence. That's the issue. You talk about the UN, but let's talk about the National Assembly. There's also often people not there. Anyways, Harry was flexing his wealth and he's spending so much time with my daughter. Who does he think he is? Anyways, don't mind him, but do mind his arguments. He did manage to show you that an engaged presence is a higher form of presence than absence because it allows you to shape your world. But I was absent. Her life has just been slipping through my fingers all the time. I could have been there for her first words, her first steps, her first adventure, her first date. I should have been there for her. But I missed it all. And for what? I could have been a steady presence. Instead, I was absent. That's what gives me a good perspective to show you that a steady presence is a higher form of presence than absence. Yes,
If your absence was not the highest form of presence for your alleged daughter, why does she care if you're her father?
She's curious. She wants to find out. Aren't you curious sometimes? That doesn't mean that it's the highest form of anything. Of relationships, because people look for continuity in presence. Here come my arguments!
No arguments.
No, thank you. First, because when there is an absence, when you miss someone, you long for their presence. And second, because when you don't miss them, you just move on by replacing them. My first point is that absence is a reminder of the past presence. Nothing. And when you miss someone, it hurts. Because you want them to be there. Their steady presence would be a higher form of presence than their absence. Yes.
How is you not missing them and their thought occupying your mind the highest form of their presence in your life at that moment?
It's not that big a deal, honestly. It's like Aristophanes' myth, according to Plato. He believes that we were all joined with our soulmates before Zeus cut us up as a punishment. You long for the other because they are a part of your... That was cut away. Their absence is just a punishment. How could it be elevated? For example, in a relationship, when you meet someone, you enjoy their presence. Then, once they're gone, you may miss them. Their past presence thus created the feeling of absence, of missing them. But when they come back, no thank you. Absence is gone. Presence both creates and erases absence. It has the first and last words. It controls absence. It is a higher form of presence. No, thank you. You want continuity in presence. You aren't satisfied with absence. Indeed, after a while, the echo of the past presence starts to fade. And you just wind up replacing. No, thank you. Like Donna replaced me with Harry, and like I replaced her with Hannah, Katerina, Sabrina, Irina. Anyways, this is my second argument. You love the steady presence so much that you eventually wind up replacing the absentees. As they say, no thank you. Out of sight, out of mind, and I travel lots, so things quickly come out of sight. But luckily I meet loads of new people, and I move on, I replace. I always need presence, and so does everyone else. No thank you. According to Freud, it makes us transfer what we found with someone or something that is now absent into someone or something that isn't. When Harry loses his yacht, he's probably just gonna buy a new one. When something in your life is missing, you're gonna find something else to fill that void. To replace a bachelor's degree, a boat to replace a woman. According to the Pew research, 69% of Americans believe that you can have more than one true love. Steady presence is worth the grief. That's why you get a new dog, despite the pain you felt losing the first one. You most likely outlive it and just feel that pain again. This process is natural. Moving on is natural. You move on even when no one is absent. You here still living with their parents? I have shown you what I should have done for Sophie. I should have been a steady presence in her life because that is better at the skill of relationships. Wait a second, Sam. What are you doing with my daughter? Wait, are you her father? At least you're what an absent father would be, because at the personal skill, absence isn't the highest form of presence either. It is trumped by courageous presence. In essence, presence fulfills, whereas absence distills. I implore you to reject this motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now moving to the next speaker, the fourth speaker from the government side. I call upon Ms. Pratishtha Tiwari.
Mic check. All good?
Yes,
Hear her. That's good.
Let's make chai. I am sure, dear Chairman, that you will find joy in my chai. We will start by putting half a cup of water. Now it has to be as exact as the timekeeper's bells. Wait, we have to wait for it to come to a boil. Careful opposition, you might burn yourself. Next, I will add leaves as royal as your excellency, and then a little bit of cardamom with the flavor as striking as the commissioner, and yes, to balance it all out like the fairest jury over here. Oh, how can I forget? A little bit of ginger, the reason my chai is the talk of the town. I'm sure Louis Delan and Jean-Pascal Saviet will know a lot about that. Finally, I will add a half cup of milk, most essential for this chai, just like the government is to this house. Dear audience, you have to come to my yoga class just to try this tea. It's wonderful, just like you. Now, I'll leave the chai here for now, and let's take it to another level. Namaste, and inner peace to all of you, except me, because the opposition's positions are anti-Zen. They keep talking about a movie and their characters in a movie, and they're talking about a missing father. Well, the absence of father has occupied their mind so much that he's so present that he's present in its highest form. They themselves say that absence is a form of presence, their OL has defined, but yet they say that when you're feeling absence, it is not the same as feeling the presence of something. Well, how do you feel absence? My phone is missing. How do I feel its absence? It's because I'm feeling the presence of the emptiness on the side of the lectern. Now, absence does have negative effects, ladies and gentlemen. No women in politics. You feel it, don't you? Doesn't it make your blood boil? That thought overpowers you. No, thank you. This is the highest form of presence of resolve to make it happen, to bring the women in. My predecessor, the adventurer, the missing father. No, thank you. How can a relationship endure if all you need is a physical presence? My mom goes to the bathroom and I replace her? Is that what you're like? You talk about moving on when the physical presence is gone. Well, how will you move on if you don't grow from your past experiences? How will I learn if I don't understand that my past lover did something very wrong? Moving on. No, thank you. I am the yoga instructor. And when I read the book, I found so many parallels with my practice. I will share two new perspectives as postures. Posture 1. Absence of mind is the way to mindfulness. And posture 2. Wait a moment, sir. Absence of certainty in mind leads to boundless potential. Yes, please.
Isn't yoga about being present in the moment?
Please repeat yourself, I did not get it.
Isn't yoga about being present in the moment?
And how do you become present in the moment if you cannot make the distractions absent from you? By the time I finished reading the book, I knew absence is the highest form of presence because of the realm of possibilities it opens up. No, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, absence is the way, absence of mind is the way to mindfulness. Yes, you heard that right. Remember when actor Thomas said, absence lets us feel the present stronger? Your mind, ladies and gentlemen, is so occupied with wars, with strikes, and the worst of all, the unwashed dishes in the sink. What we need today is an absence of mind from here, so we can be even more present here. To be mindful. Let me demonstrate. No, thank you. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Now remove your mind from the chaotic arguments of the opposition. Because mindfulness allows us to transcend the physical. As the Japanese philosopher D.T. Suzuki has said, emptiness, which is conceptually liable to be mistaken for sheer nothingness, is in fact a reservoir of infinite possibilities. And this precisely is my second posture. Absence of certainty in mind leads to boundless potential. Joao, the activist, made an excellent case for using absence. My interpretation is that when we hope to be certain, but just cannot be, we unleash creativity in its highest form. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when we were children, with minds so pure, we would come up with the weirdest monsters that could jump out at us from the dark, like the Wright brothers didn't know humans could not fly, and so they invented planes. The lack of certainty, the absence of certainty led to innovation. The void of meaning of our existence is filled by existentialism, religion and the like. And that is the highest form of presence, of freedom of our mind. Dear jury, before the critic gives her take tonight, I ask you, is there a higher form of being than the one that is unbounded by this physical world? In the way they think, the way people think, and the way we interact with the world, the way we unleash the creativity and go beyond the physical world when we create things. Both of these things require absence. And hence, absence is the highest form of presence. And so, Shanti. Dear jury, read between the lines. Absence is the sign. Vote for the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let's now call upon the fourth speaker from the opposition side, Mr. Luca Clemente.
Your Excellency, I'm honored and delighted to debate in your presence. Monsieur le Président, it's an honor to spend a Tuesday evening here at the Assemblée Nationale. No one said it, so I guess I will. For the sake of their Instagram accounts, everyone would have favored the hemicycle. But it's also great here, so thank you. Dear Commissioner, thank you for being here. Tonight, you and I do the same thing, preventing members of the governments from saying or doing unethical things. At least one of us is paid for it. Chairman, thank you for being here tonight. You're like an Irish version of Monsieur Richard Ferrand. So, of course, your presence is certainly of the highest type. I see that for the first time in this competition, timekeeping requires the presence of no less than 2 people. The FDA does not mess around with time. So, bad persons, thank you for being here. Dear members of the jury, I hope our super troops lights are going to find you. I have to say that your presence is the highest form of presence. Tonight, you get to rule at the Assemblée Nationale. In a way, it makes you deputies. Dear coach, the opposition, full of absent fathers, we have been missing every time we were expected to be here. In a way, it makes us deputies. I also want to greet the government. Congratulations for making it to this epic final. Unfortunately, we will need to table a motion of censure against you tonight. Dear father in the audience, dear sister, dear girlfriend, dear best friends, if you hadn't come tonight, well, I would have killed it anyway. Absence is not that big a deal. Dear audience, here and online, thank you for choosing us instead of the Champions League games. Good. Evening. My name is Sam, and I got an invite from Sophie. I think I know why. I'm her biological father. It's obvious we look like twins. I might have forgotten this night with her mother though, but I did not forget the words of the government. So for a government advocating taking it to another level, your arguments really stayed at ground zero. First, I'd like to remind you something. Without roots, there are no trees. Then, you said absence of mind is key. Well, tell that to crazy people. And absence leads to innovation. Well, when you have no resources, you don't innovate at all. So, you seem to like some ingredients. Real life. Alright, Sophie is mine, according to DNA. So Harry and Bill, keep my daughter's name out of your mouth. But with her mother, SOS, a relationship was the highest form of inconvenience. So I used this famous trick. Don't try this at home. I left, pretending to buy a gallon of milk, and I never came back. Classic move. It never gets old. But I guess she was pregnant and the rest is history. Believe me, my biggest wish now is to be present for her and to stand up for Sophie. Absence is clearly not, no thank you, the highest form of presence, from the viewpoint of the absentee as well. And I have two arguments to prove it. Yes?
How can we trust you on this motion if you have both been for absence and for presence?
Well, I was absent out of guilt and out of FOMO, as you will see. But now, I'm praising presence, because it's the right thing to do. So I have two arguments to prove it. Absence has consequences at a personal scale. First, in relation to others, it's unfulfilling and destructive. And second, in relation to oneself, it leads you to deny your own existence. Therefore, absence is nothing compared to a courageous type of presence. When you fail other people by not showing up, you are definitely not of the highest type. And that's my first point. When you are expected and you don't show up, you often just show how disrespectful you are or how much of a coward you are. And if being absent makes people think less of you, how can you say that this is the highest form of anything? Yes.
Were the three fathers not cowards for leaving?
Well, we're here as courageous fathers. So a courageous presence is the way to go. It's obvious. Sophie would have preferred my steady presence over my absence, as Bill told you. This guy had a point. Still not the father, though. But if I follow the twisted logic of the government, when I have the chance to talk to Sophie, I could say, well, Sophie, yes, I was not around for 20 years, but it's okay. Absence is the highest form of presence, Sophie. That doesn't make any sense. When absent, psychological studies show that you experience FOMO, the fear of missing out. Is this feeling of apprehension? No, thank you. That one is not in the know, then one is missing out on great experiences. It exists in social media, social interactions, investments. 69% of millennials actually experience FOMO, which results in low self-esteem, anxiety, frustration. Well, not the highest version of yourself. No, thank you. Even Molière wrote about it in Les Précieuses Ridicules, in which one of the precious ones says that not knowing each and every latest sonnet makes you a loser. So, people knew for quite some time that, on a personal level, missing out harms, while taking part heals. Look at what FOMO did to me. I missed out a whole different life. It's a miracle that my Sophie turned out okay. But now that I see this haircut, I'm not so sure. This brings me to my second point. Absence is not the highest form, no thank you, of presence when it comes to oneself. First, having frequent absences is actually a disease, and you should seek professional opinion. That said, being absent from oneself means that you don't stand up for yourself in any way, even when you are expected to. Therefore, you are stuck in a state of wondering, and you become highly suggestible. Soon enough, jeu est un autre, as Arthur Rimbaud said, and you stop existing. People commit atrocities only when they are absent from themselves. No, thank you. This is at the core of Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil. Atrocities are very often caused by an absence of questioning, an absence of judgments, an absence of self. No, thank you. Is this zombie state what the government is defending here at the Assemblée Nationale? Obviously, fending for yourself is showing a brave, daring and courageous presence. It's so much fulfilling to act out than to drop out. Those who bail on everything are those who fail at everything. It's so easy to flee and much more noble to face. As for me, in my defense, I had to run away. I was already married. The truth is, being there, showing up, taking part is much more fulfilling than any absence will ever be. At your job, being absent makes you unreliable, period. With your family, being absent makes you irresponsible, period. When voting, being absent makes you powerless, period. That's what Harry told you earlier. He's right, but he's not the father. Being a courageous presence is always better. And to be fair, this motion is kind of silly. I'm having the time of my life here, but according to the government, to enjoy it to the fullest, the best thing I should do is to leave the room. But I guess I have no choice anyway, as the two timekeepers are staring at me. So please remember, being a courageous presence is definitely better at a personal scale, both in relation to others and to oneself. You will now hear from Donna, the mother of my Sophie, who will sum things up for us and hopefully take it back. Members of the jury, presence fulfills where absence distills. When all is said and done, please reject this motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We now reach the final two speakers on either side. In the FDA, we refer to them as the whips. So the government whip shall now address us, and that is Ms. Deeksha Kota.
Your Excellency, dear Commissioner, Madam Sylvia Conall, and all the esteemed members of jury, you are the highest form of judge, the greatest of the century. Yeah. Captivating chairperson, who stands above us all, you bring me joy very deeply in my soul. Yeah. Terrific timekeepers, who never fail to ring, you are the breath of fresh air, the first flower of the spring. The graceful members of the government, exploders of shells, lucky is a reader who doesn't need to read by themselves. Obvious opposition, who cannot be overrated. The fun of tonight's debate cannot be overstated. Admirable audience of all possible motions, I hope this one tonight will kindle your emotions. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take it to another level. I am a literary critic. I have read thousands of books in my life. But this week's sessions, ladies and gentlemen, blew my mind. Every book is read expecting one true meaning behind those words. But we often forget that it is precisely the absence of this one true meaning that has given room to thousands of interpretations. By showcasing their perceptions of the book, my friends from Juicy Joy's book club have elevated those mere words to a higher level and proved indeed absence is the highest form of presence, ladies and gentlemen. But the opposition's book of arguments, if I'm generous, a 3 out of 10. In my review, I'll address the main clash point and of course the plot holes and contradictions of the arguments. The first clash point, ladies and gentlemen, elephant in the room. No thank you. The clash on highest form of presence. We, the government, believe that highest form is the one that transcends the physical and temporal limitations, ladies and gentlemen. The opposition is trying to exploit the fact that one might desire physical presence. But is that the highest form of presence? Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, our days are numbered. Second, our feelings are not limited by face-to-face interaction, ladies and gentlemen. The present that transcends through these limitations of... Yes, please.
How can absence be the highest form of presence when it relies on memory, which eventually fades away?
Have you heard of legacies, ladies and gentlemen? We've been talking about from my book club, the discussion is legacies, ladies and gentlemen. The dreams are passed on through generations, through legacy, ladies and gentlemen. Is that dying out, ladies and gentlemen? No, we are talking about James Joyce's quote. After 100 years, ladies and gentlemen, this is the highest form of presence. And that is, no thank you, the government's negative, because the highest form of presence transcends through our memories and our legacies. But the opposition has been a lot contradicted me. No thank you. The first contradiction, ladies and gentlemen, is absence is not engaging, said by the banker, yet it has a lot of consequences, said by the architect. How is that possible, ladies and gentlemen? Yet, there is a second contradiction, that is, absence is lazy, yet it has dire consequences, because absence is punishment. Absence is something that you can be replaced. How is this possible? Here. No, thank you. The first argument speaker, banker, Madam Hattie, talks about engaging presence, yet says just showing up is the highest form of presence. Refuses to acknowledge that inaction is in voting is not information. No, thank you. Is not having any influence, yet blames the people and says people have to stand up for themselves. It's their choice. How is this possible, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not showing it through inaction, as shown by Joao, which transcended through everyone, reflected and joined the whole country together? Yes.
Can you explain how being absent from history books shows great presence in history?
History books? How would you know about it? Really, it was indeed an adventurous argument, because if something is missing, you feel because you need and you crave their physical presence, and yet if something is missing, you replace it. They literally shot themselves in the foot with that argument. And the third argument is about how there is a steady presence and yet there is FOMO. You have FOMO when you have absent, and yet if you are absent, you stop existing. How is this possible? And if you bail out, you fail. Steve Jobs literally bailed out from college, and isn't that the highest form of presence for Apple? I can go on and on, but it's time for tonight's session's wind-up, the meeting of Jules Joyce looked up. Conall, our humble host, introduced today's reading and initiated the discussion around multiple meanings of emotion. First, Thomas, our active friend, showcased his interpretation. Absence lets you feel the presence on the higher level. We take what we have for granted, but it's in that absence that we feel the presence strongly. Feelings soar in our heart, memories blooms in our mind, and legacies live on in our lives, ladies and gentlemen, the highest form of presence. Followed by Joao, our activist friend, proposed his perception. Absence elevates the message. The silent treatment from your beloved, a minute of silence to commemorate, speaks volumes, ladies and gentlemen. This silence strengthens the message. Boycotting, civil disobedience, and abstention illustrates how inaction enhances the presence of your message. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the highest form of presence. Finally, Pratishtha, our yoga instructor friend, demonstrated her perception. Absence opens a realm of possibilities. To be mindful and creative. Isn't that highest form of presence, ladies and gentlemen? Absence is the highest form of presence because our feelings fly. Read between the lines. Absence is the sign. Vote for the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. also to the tooth bell for their musical accompaniment. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the final official speaker of the evening, I will remind you that when the jury retires to consider its extremely difficult decision, we will be throwing the motion open to the House. So members of the House, if you want to be thinking about maybe what you might like to say and the questions you might like to ask or how you feel about the motion. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you should listen extremely attentively to the final speaker, the opposition whip, Mr. Alexandre.
Your Excellency, we are honored to debate in front of your eyes. And even though we didn't pick our sides, we feel lucky to be defending the virtues of presence and action in front of an ambassador. Presence is your purpose, and tonight, it's ours. Monsieur le Président, one last time, thank you for inviting us to such a special place. We understand your absence. We imagine how late it can be to watch a government and an opposition arguing after a full day of watching a government and an opposition arguing. However, tonight was your opportunity to witness what it's like to have a stronger opposition. Dear Commissioner, dear members of the jury, thank you for coming to judge this debate. Your presence is humbling. As opposed to the government, we don't believe that any form of presence is higher than yours tonight. Honorable Chairman and dear timekeepers, on behalf of my whole team, and all the teams I believe, I would like to thank you warmly for your kindness and your devotion throughout the whole tournament. Depressed governments, SUPAERO might know a lot about height, but we are from the Plateau de Saclay. You cannot teach us anything about absence, emptiness, and void. And no one cares. My beloved teammates, this is our last debate, and I would like to thank you for all the work, the arguments, and the laughs. Last but not least, to our loud audience tonight, we've been delighted to speak in front of you. To all our friends who did not receive an invitation, which means all our friends. We have to admit, tonight your absence is the highest form of the we're kidding. We're having hell of a time. We'll see you tomorrow, and so. Mrs. Wood, dear family, Justin. Ladies and gentlemen, for the very final time this year, it is my pleasure to wish you all a good evening. I'm Diane, the mother of the lovely creature you saw earlier. Back in my days, we didn't care about presence and absence as much as we did about the highest form, which was being the highest in the room. It was the 60s, my dear. That's how I got to dance with these three gentlemen, engaged for some of them at the time. Rich, respected, educated, and handsome, and rich guys. But when they came to me, my presence seemed to be of a higher form than any kind of absence, especially their wives. Oh, I was a dancing queen. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, but Sophie told me, you have to come to the Assemblée Nationale on Tuesday. I'm finally gonna meet my dad. I told her, fine, honey, nice move, but for the greatest sugar daddies, you should try the Senate. To Hollywood, but my life was more thank you next than take a chance on me. What we preferred in our relationship was living. But let me tell you something. Absence has never been a big deal for me and Sophie. Our mutual presence was enough. Love was enough. I was enough. But now, how do we get to a higher form? Yes, please go ahead.
If your love is enough, why do you have the three fathers standing here today?
That's my next sentence, please. Thank you. Do you dwell on someone's absence, or do you seek for a new presence? Sophie has made a choice, the government hasn't. Before I get to my points of clash, breaking news from the Assemblée Nationale. Apparently a coup d'etat has taken place, and all the government's arguments have been replaced by examples. You said you wouldn't talk about physical presence, so I was was surprised that your first argument was just an example about physical presence. The physical things that are taken for granted. Oh, how about the physical things that are not taken for granted? Since you love chaos, take air out of earth, chaos. Take blood out of your body, chaos. Take Shanika out of this room, chaos. Physically, absence is not presence, period. My first point of clash is about how you consider that absence is sometimes necessary. First of all, you said it, absence is necessary, no thank you, in order to be mindful, which means being present. So absence is just a mean, not an end. How can that be the highest form of anything? By the way, no thank you. This is again just an example. Every Thursday night, I drink enough vodka to kill a horse. And let me tell you, in the end, I'll feel quite mindful. Does that make drinking the highest form of anything? Please go ahead.
How can you blame absence for being just a means and then say that presence is the mean to achieve all marvelous things in society?
The answer is in the question. When you achieve something, it's with presence, not absence. My second point of clash is about how you claim that absence amplifies a message. In other words, absence is louder than words. Well, let me tell you. Surprise! I just had to check the government's argument and judge it on everyone's face. It doesn't work that well. No, thank you. Yes, unexpected presence may be loud. Actors missing the Oscars, or Richard Ferrand missing the FDA final. Now, how do we know that showing up and standing up for herself wouldn't be even louder? When an amateur soccer team, like the great metropolises of Avranches and Granville, go to the final of the Coupe de France, we don't drag the professional who got destroyed in the mud as much as we glorify the petit poussé. Unexpected absence may be loud, but unexpected presence is even louder. Therefore, absence is not the highest form of presence. Yes, please go ahead.
Should the MPs who did not go to Westminster have stayed in Westminster for, as they did for the previous 100 years?
I did not get your question, but since absence is the highest form of presence, here I am. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully tonight, the opposition not only has something to oppose, but as a proof of our good faith, we had something to propose. 3 forms of presence greater than absence. First, Harry showed that at the scale of society, whether we're talking about intentional or forced absence, an engaged presence is the most preferable in order to make things move. Then Bill explained that when it comes to relationships, presence is what creates, but what also erases absence thanks to replacement. Thus, a steady presence is what we should all look for. No, thank you. Finally, some prove that at your personal scale, absence consumes your interactions with the world and even leads you to flee from your own life. Therefore, a courageous presence should be preferred. Dear members of the jury, our lives are made of endless wheels. Pride and shame, joy and anger. Presence and absence are just the same. One doesn't go without the other. In those wheels, we're always looking for the same side, the higher one. How do you beat anger? Joy. How do you get rid of shame? Pride. So now, how do you beat absence? As we believe a highest form cannot destroy, as we believe there's no medicine presence cannot provide, we always look for company rather than avoid, and company always overshadows when no one's aside. Thus, absence is what we prefer to avoid, and glorifying presence is what we should all decide. Presence fulfills, whereas absence distills. So please, reject the motion.
To the final speaker, may I now call upon the co-vice president of the FDA to lead the jury, the members of the jury, to the jury room to consider the verdict. They have 5 criteria I have already enumerated. They know what they're looking for, but please give them a round of applause as they go out. 5 minutes max. If they can, that's not going to be easy, I know. During this time, ladies and gentlemen of the House, you will have the opportunity to make your presence felt. Order, please. Order, please.
We always take a car when we come here.
And so you can speak for or against the motion, or on the motion, or, as I said, ask questions to either team. But before we reach that exciting moment of debate, and give you a little time to reflect upon what you may wish to say, I'd like to make a few declarations and notably to thank people who have made this evening's event possible. I'm sure you would agree that this splendid venue has added the right touch of solemnity to the proceedings, and so I would like once again to express the Association's gratitude to all those who helped in the obtaining of permission to use this wonderful room. Our best thanks once more go to the Président de l'Assemblée nationale, Monsieur Ferrand, and also to the Premier Questeur, Mr. Florian Bachelier. The staff of the Assembly are doing overtime, and they're doing it for us. So thank you very much to all the members. I'd also like to thank all those previous debaters who come back year after year. In some cases, year after year after year. This year, once again, all our qualifying rounds and our quarterfinals and our semi-finals were judged by former debaters and current coaches in our tournament. That makes over 60 judges, all debaters themselves, judging 26 full debates. And in addition, we have expanded this year. We have been calling on jury members to travel greater and greater distances. They've had to go to Châtenay-Malabry. They've had to go to Malabary. I was there actually, but not for the Disney reasons. Had to go to Toulouse, to Lille, to Strasbourg. Those former debaters are too numerous to mention by name, but they know who they are, and I know who they are. And I look around this room and I see many smiling faces that I know well, and it really is very, very heartwarming to see you all come back. You are, well, we are a big family in the FDA, and you are the lifeblood of our, if I can use a kind of a Celtic or Gaelic term, you are the essence of our kinship, of our clan. And when you come back, even the tall guy walking down the main aisle there, he never won the tournament, by the way. He lost in 2 finals, which is a record. Sorry,
Who was the coach?
Oh, that's true. He was the French champion of le débat en français. But nonetheless, oh, and he was the coach of the X team in 2019. That's along with me. But okay, I'm sorry. And I've never seen him go red in all the years I've known him, but he did go red there. So sorry. You'll get me back for that one. But I mean, I just want to say, you know, you come back and you give us a helping hand, and it's just, you know, you show your appreciation for what we have created over the last 29 years. And so it's now my opportunity to say to all of you former debaters who are here present, and to return that, over 1,500 veterans, as we call them, and they come back and they answer our rhetorical call. So applaud them and applaud yourselves. And speaking of helping hand, I'd also like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you, obviously to the two sections, to Peter, who's not present so he can't hear what I'm saying, to our other co-vice president, Anne, whom I haven't mentioned, but I can do so now because she wears another cap as the coach of the SUPAERO team. But thank you very much to all the members. I'm not going to mention all the members of the executive committee of the FDA who have done. Yes, okay. Shanik is telling me I should mention the treasurer, Robert Bradford, because
he's gonna pay.
Right, he's paying for the cocktail reception. He's a wonderful guy, but he's also very important for that reason, that's for sure.
He has the credit card.
Well, yeah, without all of those members of the executive committee, things wouldn't have happened tonight. I'd also like to thank all of those, here's an important moment, who have the true grit at the moment of crunch. When the chips are done and the cards are on the table, and any other cliche you want to use, you take up the gauntlet, you take the floor, you speak for or against the motion. In the wise words of my own rhetorical mentor, a gentleman called Joe Strummer, some of you are old enough to know who I'm talking about. He said, it's a sad thing when men have neither the wit to speak nor the good judgment to hold their tongues. So let's see which applies to you as we throw the motion up into the house and we follow Shakespeare, who tells us, inverted commas, be sure to leave other men their turns to speak. So we give you that opportunity to speak, to join the greats of French politics. Victor Hugo in his own room, Jean Jaurès, Jean Lassalle. I'm not, I mean, he's eliminated anyway, so I'm not taking sides. To join the greats of French politics and say to your grandma, I spoke at the National Assembly, at the Assemblée Nationale. So here we go. Shanika's got a mic, and we have already a first speaker. Excellent. Madam.
I wanted to spare Shanika the trip, so she was here, I seized the opportunity. And as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage as well, and you magnificent people of the FDA are all the magnificent actors, so thank you very much for showing up and making us such a lovely play to watch. Thank you the teams, thank you the coaches, the assembly teams, wherever they may be. But to go a little bit further into my reasoning and my questions, is that for sure the FDA has gotten us used to this event, and we have felt its absence, at least for my part. These last 2 years were very sad for us not to be able to gather and to have this communion that the final is. So in a form, in a manner of speaking, it is the highest form of presence or absence, I don't know. But definitely, and that was the general point as when I saw the motion, is that I felt it was quite difficult to be present and defend absence in a way. So good job, both teams, of course, but I do feel that as a spectator, I was biased even before entering the playground for this motion.
Here, here. Just before, would anyone from the government side like to make a comment on that? Because obviously that, to some extent, is directed towards you. Yeah, Conall?
Indeed, it was difficult.
That sounds less like something that James Joyce would have said, more like Samuel Beckett. 4 words. Yes, we have someone over here who'd like to take the floor.
Hello everyone. I have a question for the book club, or for anyone else. James Joyce or Oscar Wilde?
Here, here!
Right, Conall, go ahead.
Both great Irishmen, however, given James Joyce's personal history and his questionable personal character, which didn't come into the debate tonight, I'd pick Oscar Wilde.
Right, I think that's a long debate. All right. Yes, we have a young lady here at the back.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate both of the teams for such a wonderful and entertaining, highly entertaining debate. Well, this is a very basic question, but it's also trivial. So what did you think about the motion? What were the hardest things to argue on both sides? What were the hardest things, the strong points that you had? What did you think?
Okay, well, we've heard from the government twice, so perhaps if the opposition would like to say something. Benjamin, apparently you've been just elected by your team.
The hardest thing for me is that when I learned what the motion was, every example I could think of was governance. It's helping governance. I felt like in the arts, a lot of examples would help the government side. So at first it was hard for me to turn it around, but I think we were all glad. In the end, we were pretty much convinced by our arguments.
Okay, government side, anyone like to take the floor on this one? Joao? Can you?
Yes, of course. Sorry. Yeah, the most difficult thing was the foot is to show up. Yes. We could have just been absent and said, yes, this is our entire argument. No, but we have to work around the kind of the ambiguity of absence and presence. So it's a bit of a trick we have to do. But in the end, I think it's the same. We all are convinced of our motion. I think we all are at the end. Conall's looking at me, so yes, I'll pass it.
One thing I'd like to say is that this motion, James Joyce, he wrote it in a letter, not in one of his works or his novels, so he didn't think very deeply about what he was saying. He didn't consider the consequences that 100 years later he'd be having such trouble debating the topic, so that was what made it quite difficult for us.
Well, I have to admit that we did look at possible quotations from Finnegan's Wake. We thought that no one would understand. So we went for something that's a little bit more, let's say, understandable and comprehensible. I think we have someone, a lady at the back, yes?
First of all, congratulations to both teams, and I'd like to come back on a point that was made by the government about legacies. Legacies were introduced as a representation of absence. Even though people are absent, the ideas are still transmitted. But I would have rather seen that as an example of presence, because legacies are living. Legacies exist because people talk about their dreams, they talk about their goals. They exist thanks to the power of words, thanks to the presence of words.
Right, okay, so, Thomas?
I was just going to say that, I mean, it's very absolutely true, and I think that the difficulty with the motion is that absence and presence work in unison. You cannot stand to be always with the same person all the time, and the same way with legacy. You need to actually be there to perpetuate it, but you also need someone to not be there anymore. Otherwise it's not a legacy, it's a message. So throughout the entire debate it was this sort of idea, this dance around absence but not presence, presence but not absence, even though they work together, in my mind at least.
Okay. Right, gentleman over here.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations to both teams, first of all. We had a great laughter. Okay. We had a great laughter, so congratulations. My question is not regarding the motion. It's an easy question. I would even say it's present. So, so to both teams, how did you felt yourself evolving during this tournament? For example, what did you do in the beginning that you will absolutely not do now?
Ah, fascinating question. Anyone? Yeah? Okay. Opposition?
A lot of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
We actually learned a lot, and that is thanks to the judges always giving us a lot of feedback. I think it also depends on how we like the motions. I feel like we had a harder time with the previous motions, the one we had at the beginning. But what we do differently, a lot of things, we tend to try to have a more structured and clear speech, do a lot of signposting, be very scolaire when presenting our arguments, stating things clearly. Well, there were a lot of changes, really.
Okay. Yes?
Firstly, how did you like my ladies and gentlemen going on in a loop? So, I was, so I've been whipped for the whole tournament, and it was quite a journey, to be honest. To be quite honest, I don't listen to the lectures at all. And now I have to listen to all of them speak and understand what they're speaking and try to compare with what we are speaking and then wait, what is happening? So it was something that I learned in debating, to be quite honest. It was a journey that was so good, because with every tournament I used to learn something new about whipping. I'm like, oh, this is something about whipping. Every tournament it's been new, and the way I'm whipping has been evolved exponentially throughout the tournament, and I've learned so much, and I'm very thankful for this organization for making this happen and letting us grow. So thank you so much.
Yeah. I would remind you also that whipping has several meanings in English. So I assume that you have learned other varieties during the tournament. Shame, yeah, totally shame. Yes. Apparently this is live streaming, oh my god. Yes, we have someone.
Sorry, so I haven't been listening to the last question, so I hope it hasn't been asked already, but since I'm doing my part of the job, because I figured there's like 8 juries, so I think we're going to be stuck here for a long time. But 9, okay. So I want to ask to the finalists, how is it to speak in front of so many people in such a place? Stressful, exciting, I don't know.
All right, here we go. Conall?
It's like swimming. It's like swimming. Because when you're up there, you can't stop talking, or else everyone will look at you, and you'll drown. That's how I think of it.
Well, it's a mix of both. So when you take the steps, you're like, oh god, what am I going to do? And then the first word comes out of your mouth, and then it just flows. I feel like it. So the moment beforehand is very stressful, but once you're in it, it's just goes on.
Yes? Young lady down here?
Yes. I had a wonderful evening, thank you very much. One thing was missing. Do you know what? Point of order. So my question is, had you prepared one, or what were you expecting the team?
Point of order. No.
Right, going off to you again. Point of order, sit down. No, I'm joking.
Well, no, we thought that the debate was run quite well, and we always come to every debate in good faith, and we never prepare points of order. We never expect for things to go that way, so no.
Hang on, Rose, your mic's not working, I don't know why, but if you stand up, perhaps it...
Is it working now?
That's it.
We really enjoyed debating against you. You were nice opponents, so that's also why there weren't any points of order, because the debate was fair and nice, and thank you for that.
Yes, can I just say, I mean, we do miss, or we did miss having been away from face-to-face. Last year, we had our entire tournament online. The year before, 2020, which I'm sure everyone remembers, not for the debating tournament, but for other reasons. It was interrupted at the final stage, and we made the decision as an executive committee that it wouldn't have been fair to switch from a face-to-face to a format online, and we weren't really prepared for it. We were prepared last year. Points of order, well, you know what? My memories of face-to-face debates going back to 2019, the two teams that I see before me, and I've seen both of them perform already in the tournament, are of extreme fair play, and they understand. They have been, well, you know, we talk about being gracious in defeat, but I think it's just as important to be gracious in victory. And I saw you both be extremely gracious in victory at your semi-finals. So thank you very much. There's a young man here in the center. I hope he's going to say yes.
I too would like to thank both teams for an extremely enjoyable and funny evening. It doesn't look like the funniest of propositions there, but you made it into one, so congratulations. I wonder how many people know that James Joyce's watchword was exile, silence, and cunning. And the first of those three words is exile. And I imagine that behind his work, and above all behind Ulysses, was the absence of Ireland and the absence of Dublin, which inspired him. And you might have perhaps mentioned that during this debate. I want to end with a question for the persevering and resilient and unmistakable and inimitable and majestic and loquacious chairman. What is this about the absence of a green waistcoat, Mr. Chairman?
That question is asked by one of my oldest Parisian friends. Well, he's not quite Parisian, but he is really Parisian. But since I've been in Paris for 36 years, I've known him almost for all those years. And as I said several times at the beginning of the debate, this is our 29th year. And we used to have a tradition, and some traditions kind of fall by the wayside. And one of those traditions was that, at least for the first 10 years of the tournament, I was asked to show my socks. So you want to know what's green? That was not prepared, I guarantee you. That's not. We are a good double act, Dennis. It's true, but on another level. Yes, we have someone. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Yes, young lady here.
Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you for a very funny debate. I am definitely not a veteran nor a member of the association. It's probably just my second or third debate. I am what you would call the plus one. So it's all very new to me, but it was very, very fun. That being said, I had a question. I'm actually curious because when I learned about the motion of tonight's debate, it immediately made me think of the French elections and actually the talk of Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Because when he left the stage, he hinted something about maybe leaving the new generation to do better than him, something like this. And I was wondering, because it also echoed to me about great management, or maybe even great parenting. And I wonder if maybe the government thought about this argument as well, because sometimes the greatest form of, presence is to leave the stage and be absent and let your children or your employees or even new generations of, political activists to take the stage and stop being there. Is that something that you considered? And if yes, why you didn't include it in the debate? And if no, maybe the opposition thought about it as well. Thank you.
Conall, I think you'd like to go for that one.
Yes, those are very good ideas. And we only consider them briefly. We struggle to fit ideas of management and parenting into our motion. But my father, who is sitting in the audience, has a theory called the chaos theory of management, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's about standing over a barrel of fish, and the fish swimming around are problems, and there's fish swimming the other way, which are solutions. And the solutions and the problems will attach themselves to each other, and your job as a manager is to just take solutions and attach such problems and do the same. And sometimes the best solution is to do nothing. In fact, it's the solution most of the time. And it is true that the best kind of managers are the ones who do the least amount of managing.
I wonder what happens when a big shark comes in and eats them all. Anyway, yes, we have a young lady at the back.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to congratulate both of the teams, of course, like we're all gonna do it when we're gonna ask a question. I just wanted to ask you about the team lines. So, Mamma Mia and can you explain also the choice of name, the Juicy Joyce Book Club? How did you come up with the team lines?
Okay, maybe the opposition first in that case. Rose, no? Alexander? No, Rose. Okay.
We struggle. To be honest, we generally struggle with team lines, and we ask a lot of people to help us. We ask if people have ideas, brilliant ideas. So thank you to all those people who are probably mainly watching us on Facebook, and who might be eating right now. And this one, I think Alexandre came up with it just out of the blue, and we liked it. And because what was tough for us was to find a situation where you could talk about absence, but where absence wasn't that big a deal. Because if you have a situation where absence is entirely defining of everything, and that's why Mamma Mia, it's a comedy. Like the dads, they're absent, but Sophie's fine, I think. Are you fine? Great. So that's what was the struggle, and I hope we managed to do it decently well with Mamma Mia.
Okay, Pratishtha.
I think we struggled a lot as well, and we really wanted to bring the idea of Joyce into our team line because that is what this motion is about. That is what it is about, and to us, to me at least, Joyce's books have the biggest impact on us, and so Juicy was a joke. And so the Juicy Joyce Book Club was like that. It was just to bring Joyce and to give credit and to him for this excellent motion. Thank you.
Gentlemen?
Thanks a lot for this wonderful night. As we are all waiting for Godot, for the jury, how do you feel the absence of the jury in this room now?
Well,
much better before you mentioned it. Now, not so good. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the absence of them. No, I will not defend my motion again. No, I think it's normal. It's a normal process. Sorry, it's a normal process. We have to wait, and it's not my first time. So waiting for the jury. So it's okay, and we have fun on the debate. So that was my time.
Okay, if I can perhaps venture an answer. Samuel Beckett was asked himself, who is Godot? And he said, if I knew who he was, I would have written it in my play. We fortunately do know who the jury are. So we suspect that probably at some stage they've been out for a while, but I think we all understand why they've been out for a while, because of the caliber of the debate. So, yes, there's a young gentleman, well, no, an older gentleman in here.
I'd like to thank both teams. It's just saying I'm not so young anymore. I've seen about 10 of these finals, and this is, I want to say by far, but I'm not sure, but this is definitely the highest level I've seen in the finals so far. Now, as regards the motion, I must say I hold James Joyce in very low esteem as a writer. I think he's the most overrated writer in the 20th century. And I thank the government for mentioning that it is something that he wrote in a letter, and it is definitely a poetic yet extremely lame excuse for not being present for his daughter. As for me, I do consider that my absence, and I mean I feel a lot of self-hatred in that sense, and that's why I connect to it, because I do feel that my absence is the highest form of my presence. When I'm not at home and my wife doesn't have to see me just laying on my bed, she can imagine me, and I look much better in her imagination than in real life. Having said that, on a more serious note, I'm very curious as to why God didn't come up in this conversation in the debate. He's the great absent of history, at least in Western history, because he's not an immanent God, he's a transcendent God in Judeo-Christian tradition. And I don't know, he's been haunting society for about I don't know how many thousands of years without ever showing his face. So, it's something to ponder.
Well, first of all, the gentleman who just spoke holds James Joyce in not very high esteem. He considers him to be overestimated and over-considered. But the gentleman who just spoke is probably one of the most important authors of the 21st century. By his book, Pierre Garcia and Gallimard. There's free advertising for you, Pierre. However, when he says God's been around and he goes like 3,000 something and I think he was probably referring to Jesus Christ, and that's 2,000 years. I think God is probably something like 16,000, maybe even, if you go to Lesco and you look at the transcendent, yes, but you transcend everything, yeah. Okay, but nonetheless, we still have...
Well, we could have an answer. Yeah.
Oh yes, excuse me, thank you. Right, okay.
So we did think about God, but we thought it was a really tricky subject, so we did not want to bring it up ourselves. But if the government were to bring it up, what we thought about is that we defined absence as an absence of presence when presence can be expected. And what we thought is that you cannot expect God to show up in front of you. The extent of His presence is limited to your mind and your faith. So we would say He's not absent if you have faith. And if you don't have faith, He doesn't exist. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Can I just say that I assume, Benjamin, when you say he, you mean he or she? Of course. They. Do we... Is there an answer down here, right?
Yes, so that is true. We did think about God a lot, especially in my argument, because I was talking about going beyond the physical, but even I believe that faith is a tricky subject because not everybody agrees on if there is God or not, honestly. So that is why I did talk about it. I did say religion because I wanted to get it out. But it was very, very subtly done.
Yes?
So I wanted to congratulate you, of course. I was kind of flustered. Talking to all these people, amazing people at the audience, the final, of course, the president, Sec General, the teams, the finalists. You made a serious subject very funny. A lot of people said that. You were extremely funny, both of your teams. But I wanted to ask something. So you talked about being whipped throughout the whole tournament. I wanted to know if any in your team truly found a role that they loved, or did they prefer being in multiple roles? And if so, why?
Multiple roles. Okay, let's hear about that. Alexander?
Okay, so actually we always had the same role. Benjamin was always the Prime Minister, with arguments, and I was always whip. I feel like it's kind of dangerous to change in the middle of tournament because, I don't know if it was you who asked the question about improving. No, it was Wisdom. Okay, so you improve throughout the whole tournament. You improve in your role, especially Prime Minister and whip and arguments the same. You get better and better, and then it becomes dangerous or at least counterproductive to change. So we did not switch at all, and that's it.
Someone, yes, young lady at the back, I believe.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for this debate. It was extremely entertaining. We had a great laugh. You guys all made incredible arguments, and especially, for example, for the government, you talked about boycotting, and I thought it was great because, for example, for social media, maybe you thought about it, but when you're absent from social media, you're choosing to be present in real life. So in some way, you could say that's a higher form of presence. So maybe you have thought about that. And second, I noticed you guys all had great POIs, like they were really relevant questions. So how do you prepare for them? Do you have sheets of questions, and how do you brainstorm?
Okay. I don't know if you should give away the secrets. I don't know what the coaches are going to think about this, but yeah. Someone, yeah, okay. Go ahead, McCavana.
Regarding POIs, we always prepare a bunch of POIs before the debates because it helps us to prepare, to think of counter-arguments, and we try to forecast potential arguments from the other team, and then we can write POIs in that sense, and it helps us to during the debate.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Joao?
Yes, so yeah, we have rebuttals, we have flashpoints, POIs, so kind of prepared. But I mean, nothing is the same as in the debate. A lot of POIs that we prepare do not fit because we are trying to predict what they are saying, and it's not the same thing, of course. But so there's you have to prepare, of course, but there's like 50% of improvisation and listening, of course. It's a debate. About boycotting, social media to be more presence in real life. We thought about social media, and it was a good argument. Yes, we just thought that maybe there was better examples, and there was not space for everything. But Yeah, but thank you for bringing it up. It's a good example, I think.
I'd just like to say, I think that the question is very relevant question, a very pertinent question. Those of you who are debaters know the preparation that goes into one of these debates. A lot of the audience perhaps hasn't seen one before or haven't actually participated. Even though the motion is given depending on the fact that it's this final semi-final or quarter-final 4 to 5 days before, that requires a huge amount of energy and a huge input on the side of both teams and obviously along with the coach. I should just make it clear as well that when we start the tournament, a team actually has a squad of 8, and it's possible for any of those 5 to debate if the team progresses in the tournament at any particular time. So it could be possible at the end of the tournament, if the team gets to the final, that 8 debaters have participated, but it could also be possible that only 5 have done so. But nonetheless, behind each team, there are the coaches, and there are also helpers, friends, who brainstorm, give ideas, etc., etc. So, you know, it is a spectacle, it's a great performance, but don't believe that it's all just like that. The work that went into what those 2 teams did tonight, especially for their final debate after 4 other debates, and I think they once again deserve a real run. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, here we go. It's that moment. I'd like you to show your appreciation once more to the members of the jury. I would like to call upon the ambassador now, who will deliver the decision of the jury, and please give her the welcome that she thoroughly deserves.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank FDA for inviting me to this most entertaining, most interesting debate. I've had such fun. In fact, I had so much fun I forgot to take notes at some time. But I'd also like to say how I found all the speakers so eloquent. And not only that, so convincing. In fact, the whole jury, we had a very, very, very tough time. We had a very, very tough time, and this is why we kept so long. Because we kept going from here to here, to here to here, because all your arguments and the way you presented your arguments, so convincing. But Declan told us that we must have a winner. And but before I even say it, let me say it again. The government, you really did a good job, and really you made us start thinking about all sorts of things beyond what we even thought we would be thinking about. We were here, but we were absent also. You know, the opposition, you were wonderful in showing us how very important it is to be present, even when you're absent. So, I'm sure also that all of you here enjoyed this very, very, very interesting debate. Yeah. Our task, as I said, was extremely difficult. Very, very difficult. And that even the results that I'm going to give you show you how difficult it was. it was a 5-4 decision. So you see, very slim majority, much like the French elections. But in the end, we had to choose. And Declan, I'm allowed to say it now? Okay. And now we thought that we would go for the opposition. All of us believe that the best speaker for this debate was Ms. Pratishtha. The jury was wonderful. The jury really made us, we really had a tough time. It was very difficult. But thank you so much, all of you, for the support that you gave each other, all of us. So we'd like to thank the jury. We'd like to thank this very enthusiastic crowd that is here. And I think that your parents and your friends who are here should be proud of each one of you. So.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It has been an honor to have you. And thank you very much to all the members of the jury. We truly understand how difficult your decision was. I would like to say to both teams, just once again, I mean, you saw how close the result was. But nonetheless, let us now move to the business at hand. And we will begin with the runners-up, and first of all, to the best speaker of the evening, and that is Pratishtha. Conall. Thomas. Joao. And finally, Deeksha. Are the three other members of the ENSAE squad present here? Yes. SUPAERO squad here. Right, would you like to come out, please, and accept your medal? Gentlemen, I would like to call upon the ambassador to present the winners' medals to the winning team from ENSAE. Of the squad, would they like to show themselves and come up? Yes, please. And I would now ask the ambassador to perform one final duty, and that is to present the FDA's Perpetual Challenge Trophy, 29 years old. La conversation qui n'en finit pas. I'm sure you'll agree that that is pretty relevant to us, by Busato. To Audrey Mallet, the responsable du département des langues at ENSAE. Thank you, Ambassador, once again, and please, to the Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, 29 years of the FDA. 29 years ago, do you remember what you were, what you might become? Very possibly you weren't even born, obviously. Then imagine what your parents could have imagined what you might become. And some of them are here in the audience this evening, I believe. Tonight we're answering those questions. We are here. We are now. The FDA is 29 years of age. Be you a beginner or a hardened expert, everyone is welcome in our house of the FDA. And ladies and gentlemen, let us conclude in our traditional fashion. The Irish author Oscar Wilde was mentioned this evening already. And he said, it's better to debate a question without settling it than to settle a question without debating it. And we in the FDA, we believe that we can do both. So let's settle it. Tradition has it that we do this by volume. So, if you agree with the government side that this House believes that absence is the highest form of presence, please say aye in a moment. And if you agree with the opposition side, the opposite of that, whatever it is, please say nay. Ladies and gentlemen, this House believes that absence is the highest form of presence. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye! All those against, please say nay. Nay! Oh my God, I really think that the government has it on that one. They're from Toulouse, and you guys are from the Plateau de Saclay. I don't know who made the hardest job coming here. But nonetheless, the supporters were here with you guys. I therefore declare the motion carried. The House adjourned until next year. In the name of the President of the National Assembly, I would like to invite you all to a reception at Le Transit Gare des Invalides, just across the road, where the FDA, as I said, will look after the first drinks for everyone. One final word, and one very important phrase. Slava Ukraini.